Portugal's recorded history began 2,000 years ago when the Romans came and brought the Latin language and the written form of it. But there was writing happening here in Portugal before that. Here in the town of Almodôvar, they celebrate 2,500 years of writing, because in this town there's a museum of the Southwest script. Let's explore. Almodôvar is in the southern Alentejo, in the district of Beja. The Museum of the Southwest Script is in a modern building, the very heart of Almodôvar, on Rua do Relógio, right underneath the clock tower. The museum has an impressive display of many examples of the script and detailed information in both Portuguese and English. This channel is Prehistoric Portugal, and so I'm exploring the prehistory of this wonderful country. Prehistory means before history. History begins with writing. So historians study the past by examining written records and other documents. Archaeologists study the past by examining physical artifacts and other relics of human activity. Some archaeologists do study historic periods by examining relics and artifacts from those ages, and they can therefore help us understand history. Only archaeologists are able to help us learn about and understand the prehistoric period. Side note, I'm not an archaeologist and I'm not a historian. I did study history at university, and I am taking an open course in archaeology at the Universidade de Lisboa. But my profession was in teaching. I'm learning about Portugal's prehistory by visiting sites and museums and reading publications by archaeologists. And I'm sharing those with you. I don't create new archaeological knowledge, but I'm teaching people more about what archaeologists have discovered about Portugal's prehistory. So if written records are the basis for history, why is Prehistoric Portugal including a video about writing? This development occurred during a fascinating transition period in Portugal's ancient past. The period up to and during the Roman conquest, which began in 218 BC and lasted 200 years until 19 BC, can be considered proto-history. There are some historical records by the Romans about the people who lived on the Iberian Peninsula, and so historians can study those people and cultures a little bit. More importantly, during much of the first millennium BC, beginning around 500 years before the Romans arrived, several writing systems developed on the Iberian Peninsula. These are collectively called the Paleohispanic scripts. There are a few different types of these scripts, but the one that is of interest here is the Southwest script, which developed in the area that is currently the Portuguese regions of the Alentejo and the Algarve, as well as a bit of what is now Spain. All of these writing systems are called scripts rather than languages, because they are writing systems that are not tied to a particular language. Sometimes the Southwest script is referred to as Tartessian or South Lusitanian, referring to languages that existed in the area or referring to the Roman province of Lusitania. However, there has been no definite connection between this writing system and any of the languages spoken during that time. The signs in this script developed from the Phoenician alphabet. The Phoenicians had arrived in Iberia as long ago as the 10th century BC and had established colonies along the coast, particularly Gadir, which is now Cadiz. Interestingly, the examples of this script don't come from the areas along the coast where this center of Phoenician influence was, but come primarily from locations more inland. And the term sign is used rather than letter because the symbols do not all represent individual sounds in an alphabet. The writing system is considered a semi-syllabary, with some of the signs representing syllables of a consonant and a following vowel sound. If all this sounds a little tentative, it's because the whole system just hasn't been properly deciphered. And that's largely because there simply aren't enough examples of the script to get a full analysis of how this writing system should be decoded. The examples of the script almost all come from around 100 carved stones, dating to around the 8th to the 6th century BC. In English, these are called stelae, a term that comes from the Greek. The singular is stela. In Portuguese, the word is stela, and the plural is estelas. A stela is a stone monument, often with carvings and/or an inscription. In the case of the Southwest script stelae, these are generally all funerary monuments. It's not 100% certain, as many of them were found out of context, possibly from reuse, but enough were found as part of a burial site that the rest are assumed to have been similarly used. Many of the stelae can be seen designed that the bottom part was to be buried in the ground, with the inscription standing up above the ground. Interestingly, the writing is usually right to left, but it is also often written in a spiral around the edge of a stela, and sometimes the direction may switch in alternate lines. Some researchers consider this script to have been only used for symbolic or ritual purposes, since the examples are all from funerary stelae. I wonder if it might have been used for other purposes written on materials other than stone, which have not survived until today. The museum does include a few pieces of pottery with one or more signs carved into them, as well as a single coin. The museum also features a significant example of the script called the Espanca Signary. This slab of slate has 2 lines of writing on it, each of which includes a sequence of signs in an alphabetic order. This kind of writing of an alphabet is called an abecedary. It's a fascinating abecedary. In the top or outer line of letters, the signs are all clear and well formed. The lower or inner line is less clearly carved and the signs are less well formed. This is generally interpreted as indicating that the clear characters were carved by an expert or teacher, while the second line was made by a student. The stone does not include all the characters found in other examples of the Southwest script, so some researchers place this as a separate type of script called the Espanca script, while others place it within the Southwest script. I said earlier that I'm not an archaeologist nor a historian, and I'm also not a linguist. But I find it fascinating that a localized form of writing developed here in the area that now is Portugal, long before the Romans arrived and brought Latin with them, which then developed into modern Portuguese. I learned a lot from visiting the museum and reading the beautiful program that they provide. I'd encourage you to visit the museum. It's fascinating, and the town of Almodôvar is charming. I've also got more information on my website, linked below, and I've also linked to other sources if you want more details. As always, please do leave a comment. I'd love to know your thoughts about this proto-writing system of Portugal. And do subscribe. I'm going to be visiting more museums and more prehistoric sites in the weeks and months to come. Thanks for watching.